There we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wrestling with Reality podcast. This is your host, Eric Malikian, alongside the one and only Chris Kloss. Chris, how are you doing today, buddy?
Eric Malikian, host extraordinaire. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be back here on the Wrestling with Reality podcast. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, brother, for coming on. Today, we also are very honored to have a special guest today. Chris, you go way back with him. Would you mind doing the honors and introductions here, please?
Yeah, this is some guy, you want to slam, right? Well, this guy was from Slammers Wrestling Gym. Now, we're going to get into all that, going back to the 90s, late 80s, actually, the infancy of that place. But we have on the show one of the guys that I met when I first started, one of the first guys that I was around when I first kind of dipped my hat into this crazy world of pro wrestling. This is Jeff, the Young Lion, Jeff, the Brace, Jeff Lindberg, Slammers Hall of Famer. Thank you, Jeff. It's great to reconnect with you. Welcome to the Wrestling with Reality podcast, my friend.
Chris, it's been so long. The pleasure's mine. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a huge fan of yours as well. So we grew up together. So
yeah. Well, that's honestly, that to me, that's an honor hearing it from someone like you that was right along there with Dynamite D, because if I think of all the stuff that I've done, I still don't forget when I started and where you guys were and how impactful you were to me. So that's an honor coming from you. It really is.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And you look great, man. You look like you haven't aged. What's going on?
I don't know if that's possible, but I appreciate that. I can't tell you my secret.
Oh, okay. We got a kayfabe. We're kayfabe.
Well, yeah. Maybe at the end of the show,
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, let's jump right into this. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into professional wrestling.
Huge fan, man. I grew up 5 years old. I was making everyone in my family watch wrestling. I was the kid that would go around bending all the spoons in our house, pretending I was Hulk Hogan. I'd punch the walls and just woo. And, I just wanted to be a superstar, man. I knew from the time I was 5 years old that I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And I can't believe I was so blessed to actually got to live my dream. How many people get to say that?
Absolutely. I agree. Now, did you grow up in the Los Angeles area?
I did. Yeah. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. My dad worked for General Motors, and I was, just had a fairly irregular childhood, but I got through all that, got to Slammers when I was 15 and a half. I started super young and, started a new family, basically.
That's awesome. Now, tell us a little bit of breaking into Slammers. How did that happen, and who exactly trained you?
Well, it started the first day. I don't remember a lot because I've been hit over the head with over 250 steel chairs. So when my wife says something and I give her a blank look, I remind her of that. But I remember that day very, very vividly. I took my dad. I made him take me to Slammers. I had actually called the California State Athletic Commission, and they had told me about a place that had just opened like 3 weeks earlier. And I went, talked to Vern Langdon, and he basically told me, come back after you graduate from college. And I told him no. I sat there and talked to him for 4 hours that day. I told him, you're going to start training me tomorrow. My dad's going to come with me every single day. And that's how it started.
Pretty amazing. Now, I read somewhere that you trained a bit with Sam Houston. Is that true? And what was Sam like?
Oh, Sam was great, man. He being with someone that's been in the business so long and knew so much. I thought I knew a lot until I got in the ring with Sam, and then he basically made me feel like a rookie, which man, it was a great experience, and a lot of other people that I really admire, I got to spend a little bit of time in the ring with. It was a complete honor for sure.
Now, when you started your training, what was your biggest misconception about the business that maybe you didn't have going into it that you realized real quick it maybe wasn't what you thought it was?
What a great question. That wasn't in the script. There is no script, guys. I have no idea what they're going to ask. Just basically, you go in, you watch these wrestlers, you don't see what they go through, the traveling, the diet, just the pain, the wrestling through injuries, and that's their entire life. They give up their family, they give up their friends, and they give up everything to live this dream. And you don't know all that going into it. That it basically is like training for the Olympics. Basically, this is going to consume your life in a great way, though. Wrestling in a lot of ways at the time saved my life. So it is, it's a different experience for everyone, I'm sure, but I'm sure everyone will agree that it will definitely change your life. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Jeff, what year was that when you were 15 that you started with Slammers? Was that right when their doors opened?
That was in 1794. No, it was
Okay.
in 19. I wrestled Abraham Lincoln. It was 1989. I was 15 and a quarter, basically. I was born in June, so I was very young, but I was very determined. I was not going to take no for an answer. I wanted this more than anything, and I was just blessed enough to be at the right place at the right time and be willing to put in the work.
So it was 15 years old and 1989, you said.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was 89. Correct me if I'm wrong. That is when their doors open, correct?
That is true. They opened, a few weeks prior to that. So
wow.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, were you the first student at Slammers, or was our fellow friend Darren Dynamite D the first student of the wrestling school?
After getting in the ring with Vern Langdon, and that is how everyone that started at Slammers started their career, is basically you got to get toughened up. No matter how tough you think you are, no matter what you think about professional wrestling, I to this day have friends that sit there to my face and tell me, I could do this, anybody could do this, it's this and it's that, and it's all these things that until you've actually been in the wrestling ring, you have no idea what it truly is. And so people just don't know until they get in the ring. So you get beat up by Vern first, and he toughens you up, and if you survive that, then you move to the next phase. And so after surviving Vern for a while, he told me I just met someone and been introduced to Dynamite D, who has a wrestling talk show, and so that's how I met Dynamite D, and we basically started training together, me and Darren, and that's kind of how the whole class and school started.
And this is how your friendship started too, correct?
Definitely, yeah. Instantly, as wrestling is like a lot of things, gambling or whatever. If you find out somebody does something that you enjoy, you're gonna have something in common. And so, me and Darren, even though he was 5 years older than I was, he took me under his wing as his baby brother, and man, it just. What a friendship. I've never since had a friend, and probably never will have another friend like Dynamite D ever again. But yeah, it all started through professional wrestling.
I think we can all say we haven't had a friend, or at least we've never known anyone quite like him. And when he was gone, there was something special about him that you're just never going to see again. Exactly like that.
Yeah, it was so surprising. I mean, Darren was the healthiest person I knew. I mean, the man never even had a cavity. So, so a little fact about Dynamite D. He lived a very clean lifestyle. He, just never fell into, some of the traps that I fell into later in life. And just, man, the wrestling world, the world in general, and yeah, just lost someone way too soon. They could die young, unfortunately.
I mean, if he were to go today in 2023, it would be gone too soon.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, that would make him 54, and even, yeah, it's yeah, you, you never know what God's plans are. That's for sure.
That's right.
So, Jeff, when did you have your first official professional wrestling match?
I'd say the main one that kind of started it all was really the introduction of the open house at Slammers. It was in March of 1991. By then, me and Darren had put literally, I would go to school most days and then would go to the wrestling ring, and I literally would spend 3 to 4 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week in the ring. So from 15 and a half to 17, I literally spent probably 2,000 hours in the ring perfecting my craft. And so by that time, prior to blowing out my knee right around 18, I honestly felt like me and Darren were, especially for being kind of self-trained, it wasn't like Vern was able to get in the ring and do these moves that we were doing. I felt by that time that, we were honestly, for that time, two of the best wrestlers in wrestling.
Wow.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry. Can you like, before we jump ahead, could we kind of like, I mean, I've explained it and other people have, but I'd like to hear from you. Can you explain just exactly what Slammers was, the origins, the location, and what it was like to be there, from your perceptions as, someone working there, but also what was the fan experience like coming in there, the lobby, and then the room, and then the Hall of Fame, and all that stuff? Because it's kind of hard to explain to people today. I mean, it was almost an oddity in itself at the time, but especially now,
Yeah.
and it was a holy grail place in this undescript location, city, place, street, and all that. And can you from your perspective explain that for the audience? Just kind of visualize it for them, if you will.
Chris, I think you already did a great job. But yeah, you drive into this neighborhood that would be where you'd go to get your car dismantled, or, if you want to go to pick apart, or, something like that. It definitely wasn't. It's someplace if you're lost, in a neighborhood you don't want to be lost in. It was kind of like that. You drive through these iron gates to a brick building that doesn't really have much on it at first. Eventually we do get a sign out there, but it was very unassuming. You get there and you're like, is this a scam? Is, what's happening here? Am I getting punked? Am I getting ready to get carjacked? What's going on? But then you get inside and my God, it's basically wrestling utopia from the 50s, 60s, 70s. Vern was a huge fan of the early age of wrestling, and the folks like Gorgeous George and Classy Freddie Blassie, and the forefathers of, I don't want to say forefathers, but of wrestling that really started it all for everyone, before Hulk Hogan and, before it became modernized and popularized. You walk in, there's literally probably 300 pictures across the walls of everyone, all these different celebrities, not even just wrestlers, but different celebrities that Vern knew. You walk in, it's just kind of an office, you don't really see much other than the pictures. So you're like, okay, it's a wrestling place. Where's the wrestling stuff? Where's the ring? Where's, anything related to wrestling other than pictures. And then there's these doors that you walk through, and once you walk through these doors, man, it's. And I had a dream about it. I'll tell you about it later regarding Dynamite D. But you'll walk in, and the lights of the ring are so bright that it literally is like nothing you could ever imagine. It's like, it's like you're being taken, really, and just being in the ring and having the light shining on you. And if you've never been in a wrestling ring before, just being around one that you can touch and go into is such an amazing feeling. And that's what Slammers was. It was a place for people that were not professional wrestlers that could go in. At the time, it was $25 an hour, which, nowadays I charge $125 an hour. But so would anyone else. They would charge more. But anyway, yeah, you go in there and you get to, bang on the canvas and the ring. And that Slammers ring was built in the 50s. And I'm telling you what, it was sturdy, that's for sure. You knew it wasn't going to break on you. But, man, it did not bump well for you. It was so hard that it didn't have any spring to it. The ropes were steel wires, steel cables, I should say, in rubber encasings. Just when I started training for the first month, I had bruises just from hitting the ropes. Your body has to get used to it, and it never really does. But you get so beat up, you become basically like a piece of leather or an old tree, or I don't know, old iron, or what analogy to use, but you become tough really quick in a place like that.
Yeah. Thank you. That was so true. You go in and it's not the best area in the valley, and it's hotter than heck in the summertime, and
I forgot to mention that.
and dirty and all this, and then you got it looks like a garage. It looks like, and the garage door was like, that's where it was never open, but that's where the warehouse was, where the ring was, and the Hall of Fame. But the door you go into, the one you described with about 300 pictures, that was, if you can imagine the lobby, let's say your car is on the lift over here, and the little office where the guy's taking care of you with the payment, that was Vern's, the entrance. Then you go through there, and it was like as if where the garage would be. But you're right. It was a small, big enough room, but the way the lights were set up, it was like a downsized, but it felt like the big time arena with how the lights were shined toward the ring, and a few of them were shined over toward the pictures on the wall around the ring. And then you had your Hall of Fame, the big, unbelievable casings. If fans were to see that Hall of Fame now, like it would be in the relic WWE museum of the fabulous Moolah, the Soviet Russians, Gorgeous George, unbelievable stuff you would see in a museum today now.
Yeah, it was incredible. Not to mention the mirror, the giant mirror that made everything look like there was twice as many fans, which, it would have made it about 50, but on some days. But it was incredibly hot, man. I didn't mention that part. I can remember wrestling. It had to have been 120 degrees in there. I don't know that I could do that today. I live in Phoenix, and we just had the hottest summer ever, and I lived through it, but I wasn't out there wrestling in it. But it was, man, a great place to pay your dues. You're really, at least for me anyway, like I said, was one of the first ones there, got into the right place, right time, became part of the family. And I'm hoping everyone that went to Slammers had a very similar experience where you just felt safe there. I got dropped on my head a lot of times, and I got so many injuries, and retired young, of course, because of all that. So you're never safe in the wrestling ring, but you felt like you were with your family. You felt you were around people you could trust. You didn't feel like Vern was in the locker room trying to go through your wallet while you're having your match, like you might at other promotions. And it just, it was a very safe place, especially for such a, young, impressionable young man growing up in the business,
Yeah, it was a really a magical place, and I thank and credit that place, because I look back on my what, just to touch on what you said, and I think we can all agree here. This was something we wanted as when we were kids. But when I saw you there, Dynamite D, I saw Slammers, I saw the CRN cable radio show. I think just knowing you guys, being around that, made it feel like it was, oh, this is a reality. I can actually maybe get into this. And I don't know if I ever would have done that had I not been introduced to that world at that time. And I could say a lot of other guys, same exact scenario. So, but no, that place was just a different, I think it was one of a kind probably in the world. And it was right here in this little place in the valley,
And we were there, man. I am very fortunate to have grown up in the time period I grew up in, at the location I grew up in, to have met the people that I met. I'm a huge believer in, not only God, but destiny and fate. And, and of course, with the good comes the bad, of course. But yeah, there were so many good things to be said about Slammers that it was literally a place that, for the most part, you could feel safe about having your kids attend a match, at least, for sure.
Yeah.
Although there was a lot of blood, and it was back in the extreme days. So
Where did you grow up in the valley? What high school did you go to?
Went to Reseda High.
Okay.
Didn't at the time, unfortunately, my mother had passed away and my father was not doing well, and so I didn't attend as much. I ended up graduating from a really great place called Thoreau High School, which was related to Taft High School. It's like continuation school, but I did end up getting my associate's degree from Pierce College in liberal arts.
Awesome, man. I was pretty close to you that we didn't realize, because I went to El Camino, Woodland Hills, and you were right there at Taft at the end. So wow, I never knew how close we were in that regard as well.
Right. Yeah, well, there's so many similarities, man. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Which is so great that we're speaking right now. This is, like I said, it's an honor and a privilege for me, and
Same here.
Chris, you look great too. You talked about, how the young lion, didn't age as much. You look great as well, man.
Well, you got a couple years on me, so the compliment goes more to you.
I do, man. I was born in '74, man. So
I'm 76, so we're not too far apart. And I thought back in the day, honestly, like, I'm not just saying this, you and D, when some of the first guys I saw, that again was a local thing, but whoa, these guys are pros, and it was like, I felt you guys were like, oh my gosh, way far advanced and all this. So I didn't feel like we were the same age, but I also knew that D was a little older too, like you said. So I kind of never knew that, but no, man, this is an honor for me too. And Eric, thank you for setting this up. And
for sure.
And
man.
I know Eric, you want to go down the line, the kind of the history timeline you have here. So thank you for doing that too.
No, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Jeff, for kind of mapping out Slammers and how it was. This is a little follow-up, question I have, given, what you and Chris have been talking about. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with how the business is today, but how different was it breaking in back in the late 80s, early 90s compared to now?
Well, I can only imagine, what it's like now. Back in the day, man, you'd just as I'm sure you do now, you pay your dues, you go in, people, it's, I'm not gonna say it's a cult, but it's a clique, and you gotta make your way into the clique, and you gotta gel with the cool kids and get in. And the way that you get in, man, is pay your dues. It's rough. It sucks at first. Many a days I wanted to quit. I didn't think I could do this. I'm like, where the hell is CPS during all this? Man, this is child abuse. But no, it was rough, and so it's just about paying your dues. I think finding the right place, finding the right trainer, working with the right people, and just getting into the family that is wrestling.
Yeah.
Now, you were also an instructor over at Slammers Wrestling Gym, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I since I'd been there the longest, had the most matches and kind of had started the federation with Dee and Vern. As Slammers actually became a federation and not just a place where individuals could still go there and rent the ring and come into our federation and whatnot. But yeah, as time went on, I did start to try and help the youth and impart any knowledge that I had gained with Dynamite D, upon the next generation, and felt like I did a good job and had a good hand in shaping the future and what became of Southern California wrestling at the time.
Now, you as a trainer over at Slammers Wrestling Gym, I know a lot of people came through the doors at Slammers, and you and Darren, kind of helped guide the way for a lot of people, guys including Ashley Hudson, former developmental Rodney Blackbeard, and many others. Out of all your trainees, who did you feel like had the most potential alongside you and Darren?
That's a great question. Well, obviously, beautiful Bruce Bodine made a huge impact in the business as Oklahoma, and with his writing with Vince Russo, and has been huge throughout the business, and has just accomplished so much. So he was definitely one of the funnest that I felt had a lot of great potential. Guys that I felt like really came into their own maybe after they had spent their time with me. Actually, a lot of them went into XPW. Guys like White Trash Johnny Webb had a lot of hours in the ring with him, not only training but matches and booking and whatnot. And it seemed like maybe Vern wasn't as into gimmicks and things like that. He was a little more old school. So I think for a lot of these people like Homeless Jimmy, White Trash, the Real Deal Damien Steele, I think a lot of these guys, man, they just skyrocketed and went to a level that I'm very, very proud of, definitely.
Now we're going to have a guest on tomorrow, Darren McKee, aka American Gladiator Malibu. Now, I know Darren trained alongside him and Sam Houston for a bit. Tell us about training an American Gladiator, and how was that whole experience like, and how was it working alongside Darren?
Man, you can only imagine. I'm 17 years old. I'm breaking into the business. I haven't met that many people. I've spent a lot of time in the ring, had a lot of bumps, bruises, and injuries. I feel like I'm starting to get pretty good. I'm starting to get noticed. Growing the hair out, I'm putting the bleach in, everything, that the 80s required. I'm working out and, but man, I get to meet someone I've watched on TV, American Gladiator, Malibu, Darren McBee, and Sam Houston, and man, just these people that that's when I was like, this is for real, this is really happening, and I'm a part of it, and I'm super proud. It was fun, man. I just watching these guys work together, watching Sam with Darren. It, I learned so much, and it was those are some great times, man. To be young and to be able to do anything you want without cell phones around. Just crazy times. Just man, we had so much fun. And these guys are so nice too. You would think these guys been around the world. They're super famous, but they were the nicest guys in the world. I feel super blessed to have been a part of that for sure.
Now, I wanted to follow that up. I don't know if you know Carlito Montana, a.k.a. Hombre Dioro, was on Chris Kloss's podcast
I watched it
over a year ago, and he had nothing but the greatest praise for you. You got any memories of working alongside him, and would you like to further elaborate? He thought out of all the Slammers guys, you had the most potential out of everybody to maybe make it to the big time.
And man, working with him was crazy because you didn't know what he was going to do. He was definitely off the cuff, on the fly kind of a worker. We all worked super stiff, man. That was another thing that made Slammers different, man. Here we are, young kids, but it wasn't all about the show because there wasn't as much a show. It was about us basically, beating the shit out of each other. And we were good at it. And though we entertained, it was rough, man. And Carlito was wild and crazy. And so you knew you were going to get a great match, and knew he was going to jump off the ropes and fly all over the place. The fans were going to love it, but you knew that it was going to hurt, and that you were going to remember the match. But man, what a great worker, And just going from Hombre de Oro, which working in a mask, I've luckily didn't have to do that many times. I didn't care for it that much. It's hard to breathe. It's hard to see. I think it kind of sucks personally, but yeah, man, what a transformation from Slammers to XPW. Another great example of hard work and just moving forward.
Yeah, great. By the way, great. One of the great workers to technical abilities, and in my opinion, one of the. I mean, I don't want to say. Well, maybe I say underrated in the scheme of like all the superstars that were there. I just felt like he really had like pretty much it on all levels. Like he had it all. He was great promo, by the way. And he really transitioned well into that Carlito character. But I just felt like looking back, I don't know if he was given enough of a platform for people to really know how special he was too. And he, of course, promo had the look too. I mean, he sold too as a heel. He sold it. He swerved like stuff that would get banned today, I'm sure, canceled, being Cuban, talking about the Mexican fans, the black, the white fans, all this stuff. And it was like, whoa, at the time it was shocking. It's like, where did that come from? He was ad-libbing, but boy, did he generate heat, not cheap heat. It had to do with, it made sense within his character to say these things, right? So he had the talking, the wrestling, the look. I think that was a bit of an underrated guy. For sure.
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of the guys that came out of Slammers were underrated. I mentioned Vern wasn't as much, we didn't have music and lights and smoke, and it was all about the wrestling. He wanted to sell it more as just being, real wrestling from the 50s, which had it was great. And there was so many things that were admired about it. And it had a realism that, some wrestling just doesn't have today. And you could just see the realness in the characters as they were wrestling themselves. But unfortunately, he didn't do a lot of character development. He didn't, give us a great opportunity to develop our characters, show ourselves and a lot of those guys didn't get to do it until they left Slammers, unfortunately. And so I think that's when a lot of them, sprouted basically.
Yeah.
Now, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric. I was just going to say it made it difficult because, people didn't really know the young lion because I didn't really have as much of a character. I just had a name. And, like kind of with Vern, it was kind of his way or the highway because it was his promotion. And so you didn't have as much say about, no, I want to do this, or you'd present ideas to try and, in your mind, make things more modern and more marketable. Right. But that was not what he wanted,
right,
or the direction he wanted to go in. So, yeah, you didn't have a lot of say sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, I know you being a part of the Slammers Wrestling Gym and Slammers Wrestling Federation. You got a lot of press in the wrestling magazines, from Pro Wrestling Illustrated to Wrestling World to The Wrestler and all the wrestling magazines down the line. What was that experience like? And did you ever get recognized in public by anybody? Just, maybe just, going to the supermarket, to the mall, to the bar?
Not quite as much. It was incredible to be 15 and a half, 16, 17, 18 through 26, through the whole time. It was incredible. Anytime I got to see myself in a wrestling magazine, I actually got to meet Edge at a local event, and I was talking to him about the Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the West Coast stories, and how I remember him being in there at the same time I was in there, and he actually kind of remembered me, and that was kind of an honor. So, I got kind of recognized by Edge, so that was cool. But it would be more like being at a bar or something after a show in the area that I was in, mainly Bakersfield, and meeting up with some of the locals, which. Vern always advised against, of course, keep wrestling in the family and, don't associate as much with the outside world. And so in that respect, it made wrestling, kind of, I would say, secluded. It was kind of like a Slammer's bubble. But no, I didn't get quite the fame and fortune that I'd hoped for. But hey, I'm on you guys' podcast, so who knows what's going to happen.
So you talked about your name, the Young Lion. You when we talked earlier in the beginning, when you were known as Jeff the Brace, what was going on there?
I had so I was about 18 years old, and I had just torn my meniscus and kind of blew out my knee, and had to adapt my style of wrestling kind of from a high flyer to more of a bruiser, which was, okay, because I was already hitting everybody really hard anyway. And so I adapted my style of wrestling, and, for some reason the fans didn't like it as much, and they kind of fell out of grace with the fans. Had to wear a fiberglass knee brace at the doctor during my matches. It might have got caught on a couple guys' noses or things like that, and might have been instrumental in the outcome of a few matches. But so that I guess that I went from being the young lion to the brace, because I was kind of using my brace to win some of my matches.
A la Cowboy Bob Orton kind of thing.
Well, Iron Mike Sharp, Cowboy Bob Orton, all the greats use everything that's available to them at any means necessary to win a match. So, yes, sir.
And I remember, speaking of Mike Sharp, I remember the lobby of the of Slammers. You got him and his family too, and that was another thing, talking about the celebrities on the wall, on all the wrestlers, the 8x10s. It was like you go into, an Italian restaurant or a Jewish deli that has all these celebrity pictures, and then this was what it was like in mostly wrestlers, but like you said, celebrities. And I remember the Sharps were up there, And this was a place where the legends would kind of show their respect. Nowadays people almost want to ignore there's a battle going on between indie leagues and all this stuff, but then, like, let's say WCW or WWF would come into town, WCW go into the Forum, WWF go into the LA Sports Arena. They would come to Slammers, and they, like, you got guys like Bobby Heenan, Jim Cornette, and they would come like, hey, we almost like it's a rite of passage, and we got to go to this place because it's here. And they would come, and it wasn't, again, so like divisive and anything like that. It was like, hey, it was almost like the NBA players going to this D League to support what's going on over here. And that was the vibe, that was the feel. And it was so cool knowing that these guys would come, from downtown or were Inglewood and come to the Valley just to come out, check it out before they leave for the next town.
Yeah, man, I got so much support. I spent some time in the ring. I was very fortunate to spend time in the ring with the fabulous Moolah. Man, she had to have been, okay, I'm going to say she was probably, I don't know, 69, 72, somewhere between that age. And she's like, come on, you're hitting me like an old lady. Hit me harder. And I was hitting her pretty hard. And man, she wouldn't. I had to keep hitting her until I hit her hard enough. And so eventually I, laid into her, and she's like, that's more like it. And man, she slammed me hard. One time Terry Funk hit me in the chest so hard I thought he stopped my heart. He's like, you got good bones for wrestling, son. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting, neat time in wrestling, and I, like you, I'm thankful that I grew up in that time, and also, again, the way the wrestling business was coming out to support, and again, you meeting and working with some of these legends. It was one of those places that, like, wrestlers would talk about. Oh, we're going to LA. Well, cool. There's a cool spot out there that we all kind of have to go, and that was almost like some of the guys wanted to come out there. They wanted an 8x10 to be put on that wall, like a celebrity would want at a restaurant, or something.
Right. Yeah, that made Slammers incredible, because it was really a who's who of, just anyone that was in professional wrestling or had been in wrestling that, wanted to make a mark in wrestling. Just anyone that was there at the time stopped by, and I got to meet just some amazing people that, just growing up as a little 5-year-old fan of wrestling, it was amazing. And so I got to tell you, if I could go back and relive any time, there's so many things about Slammers that I would, today, I mean, I can name dates of, some of my greatest days in history, including today. So, yeah.
So, Jeff, what would you say was the date of your favorite match, and who was it against? Can you tell us a little more in detail about that?
March 21st, 1991 was the opening of Slammers officially, as far as the beginning of the SWF and the Federation and things like that. And everybody was there, man. Jason Hervey, who I've wrestled many times from the Wonder Years. At the time, he was dating Missy Hyatt. And so, I got to meet some people that I had admired for a long time. And that weekend, so I wrestled twice on Saturday and twice on Sunday. And by the end of Sunday night, luckily I was young. I was 17. So, I had energy and youth going for me as far as healing goes. Definitely couldn't do it today. But I think that was the day that the Young Lion was born, and that the name of the Young Lion became synonymous with wrestling.
What was the date on that again, Jeff?
March 21st, 1991.
So that was a few days before WrestleMania 7, which was in Los Angeles.
Yes.
At the Sports Arena.
So everybody was there. Yes.
I mean the LA Coliseum. Did I say Sports Arena?
But yes, everybody that was anybody was in town, and it was, man, I was starstruck. I'd look up after being slammed and I'd see someone famous that I had seen on TV, and I'm like, oh my God, this person just saw me get body slammed, That's crazy. So it was unbelievable. And then they were coming up to me after it was all over, wanting to talk to me. So those, those were incredible times.
Did you get any advice from any of those people? And what was the best advice you got that weekend, since you said there were a lot of people in town because of WrestleMania? Who gave you the best advice, and, who really, took time to kind of critique you after that match?
There was, and I'm trying to remember her name, young lady that was on a soap opera. I believe it was Days of Our Lives, and I believe it was maybe Sandra Day, but a friend of Vern's, and she's like, basically, soap opera work is a lot safer than stunt work in wrestling. So, basically, you want to be behind the camera, get into Hollywood, and save your body while you can. Basically.
So, Jeff, how long was your Slammers run, and what happened to Slammers down the road? I know they kind of closed up shop in 97, 98. What kind of happened with that whole thing? Because I know they were gaining a lot of stream, as you said, from 91 till about 97 to 98. I mean, you would hear about them everywhere.
Yeah, so it was going really well. Unfortunately, there was a falling out between two of the head people, Vern Langdon and Dynamite D, Darren McMillan. I believe Darren felt like he wasn't being used properly, and that we had kind of invested our time, and just maybe things weren't moving fast enough. I don't know all the details, but at the time, the NWO was popular in WCW, and Darren had an idea of kind of doing a NWO type walk-in without with it being completely not a work, live without Vern having any idea of it, and so Darren had kind of recruited some of Vern's students that maybe felt the same way that Darren was feeling at the time, that they weren't being used properly, or whatever the case may be, and kind of recruited them to start the DWO, the Dynamite World Order. Yep. And there was an event that I main evented with El Toro Bravo, and that was the event that Dynamite D introduced the DWO. So from there, I believe that just Vern was kind of heartbroken, to be honest with you, and just didn't really see it coming. He may have heard rumors or whatnot, but so Vern basically locked the doors of Slammers for quite a while, and then it kind of reopened, but it wasn't ever quite the same. It was great, of course, and a lot of great people came afterwards and whatnot, but it wasn't the same. I returned back to Slammers, after all that had happened, and it was great, but it didn't last as long as it could have. That's for sure.
So when D broke off and did that, by the way, what an unprecedented event, being a shoot, right? Uh-huh. And it going down like that, because even in big time, you really don't really see that too often. Yeah. So for that to happen, so I would imagine, and trying to retract my memory here, that was basically like, okay, guys, you either pick Vern or you pick D and DWO, right? Like that was kind of like the boys had to kind of go one way or the other. Yeah.
It really was, and that was kind of possibly the beginning of the end of my wrestling career, to be honest with you. I was completely loyal to Vern, of course, because he was the one that had brought me into the business. It taught me everything I knew about the business from the business standpoint of wrestling and promoting and everything else. but actually being in the ring and actually doing the moves and not breaking my neck as much was Dynamite D. So I, of course, had a loyalty to him. So at that initial DWO event, though I was aware that it was going to happen, I was not a part of it. And at that time, kind of took a break from the actual wrestling part and went more into commentary. However, since Cameras had closed, it was with Darren and it was with Southern California Championship Wrestling.
Well, there's a great transition now, because now we're going into SCCW, and so Slammers was before we get into SCCW. Now, the time, did they overlap? Did the SCCW start when Slammers was still technically open?
See, now that's where being hit over the head with over 250 steel chairs comes into play, because my memory is shady on that. I would say either they started to coincide with each other or happen one right after another, because like I said, my loyalty was to both, and being Switzerland during this time period was very difficult. I had been roommates with Darren for years, and we're best friends, brothers, did everything together, and it was a interesting time, because I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know where I wanted to go in my career. I had suffered a lot of injuries, and I hadn't had quite the success or fame or fortune that I had believed would happen. But so yeah, it was an interesting time. I think it brought about a lot of change, and that's soon after that was when after SCCW became famous is when Rob Black and XPW came into play.
Right.
Another great transition, huh?
Yeah, another transition. So when you that must have been a tough decision for you. Like you said, you were loyal to both Vern, and D was your great friend. And did D was he upset at all that you kind of went with Vern, or did he understand, like, this is just, it's business?
No, I think he understood that that where my loyalty lies, it lied with him as a friend and as a worker and a wrestler. And it lied with Darren, lied with Vern as a mentor and a coach and a father figure. And that I wasn't going to do anything to betray either relationship. So I kind of remained silent. I kind of remained neutral. I kind of dropped out of the scene. So it made it difficult. And then at the same time, wrestling was starting to change. It was becoming more and more extreme. And, I wasn't sure that I wanted, I was fine with some of the stuff I'd already done, but I wasn't sure how far I wanted to get into the extreme wrestling culture.
Right. And SCCW, this was now breaking away from Vern. Again, it's kind of a foggy time for me too in the history. Like, did they overlap, or was SCCW just basically a thing after Slammers was done? But regardless, so when SCCW was going, that's when I kind of, I was going to Slammers, meeting the guys, and kind of getting some advice and training unofficially. But then when SCCW came, my opportunity to officially kind of get in the mold with everybody. And now we're doing shows. Wrestling was hot at this time too. We're talking late 90s, right? Yeah. So there's a big advantage going into that. And talk a little bit about your time in SCCW. That's entering Kevin Kleinrock and Patrick Hernandez along with D. Now, these were the three guys basically at the helm of the league, correct?
Yeah, definitely. They were. It certainly wasn't me, the brains behind it all. I did what I could, and was fortunate, again, to be to have the connections and whatnot. And me and Dee, the show we did at the LA Tennis Center, actually, with Yokozuna, made it to a WWE documentary, so that was pretty cool. We did a lot of great things. Wrestling was definitely changing at the time, and it's hard to remember how it ended from SWF to SCCW. But at that point in time, I basically had kind of transitioned into behind the scenes and doing more commentary and booking and things like that.
Yeah, you and Dee were the commentators. I was the ring announcer, and Patrick, of course, was the ref, and Kleinrock was the esteemed president of SCCW. Taking over the role from Dolly Popkins, the esteemed president, the esteemed, prestigious, honorable president, dignified, but Dolly Popkins for Slammers Wrestling Federation. And then, so Kevin Kleinrock was kind of taking that role. He would also jump in on commentary with you guys from time to time, I remember.
And Kevin has a wealth of knowledge. He knows so much about in the ring, which is amazing, and everything about business, everything about promoting, everything that, and he came into the business super young too. He started just as a fan at Slammers, and then he started booking us shows while he was still a teenager at his junior high school. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, so he got into the business young too.
You got a couple of years on me. I got a year or two on Kevin, I think. But yeah, he was the LA UCLA Tennis Center, that big show with Yokozuna and Honky Tonk Man, and then we did shows in Sun Valley and Fountain Valley. So we were kind of in Echo Park. We were kind of dipping our hat in different places around the city. So this was something that I know Slammers went to Bakersfield, but we were now going around Los Angeles, which was exciting in itself. But yeah, Kevin, you made a good point. Kevin, for somebody that's never wrestled, that's never been an announcer, that's never been a referee, I mean, he was so young. I mean, it is crazy to kind of think about how much the guy kind of knew for never really having that direct experience of working in the business as a worker.
Yeah, well, that's how smart he is. He's super intelligent. I knew that from the first day I met him. As I don't know, he couldn't. I was super young, So he was just a teenager in middle school when I met him, I'm sure, and just to see the things that he's done associated with wrestling, and what a life he's lived, and he's so blessed as well. And so I've been blessed to be around a lot of great minds, including yourself, Vern, Kevin, and a lot of forward thinkers. Where Vern wasn't a forward thinker, we had people around like you and Patrick Hernandez and Kevin Kleinrock that were thinking, more about the success of the wrestlers for the future, as opposed to, just kind of building a name right now.
Well, dude, that really means a lot coming from you, Jeff, and right back at you. Eric, do you I know you didn't attend SCCW, but you, of course, XPW later, but did you have anything right now about like that era or anything before that, the SCCW time?
Yeah, during the SCCW time, I know it kind of blends in together, as Chris had mentioned. Did you wrestle anywhere else, or was Slammers pretty much the bulk and bread and butter of where you actually worked as far as in ring?
Yeah, so I'd say probably 90% of my matches were at Slammers. I wrestled I remember wrestling a street fair which was awesome. It was outdoors and a great crowd. Different ring though. I wasn't used to the ring. The ring had some give to it, and I wasn't used to that, so it threw me off a little. I definitely can remember that. And it was quite a bit bigger than the the Slammers ring. The Slammers ring was built for economy. I could be back and forth on those Slammers ropes 10 times within 4 seconds at the time. Not because it was that small, because I was that fast as a lion, but but no, it really was. Going into a different ring, I probably wrestled about, I'd say, 10 matches outside of Slammers. Looking back at it, I definitely wish I would have done more. Kind of Vern had a unwritten rule. It wasn't unsaid, but it was more unwritten, that pretty much it was very frowned upon to go work for other promotions. Slammers was kind of I brought you into the business. I'll take you out, but if you're gonna get famous, it's gonna be with me. I gave you the knowledge, you put in the work, but you kind of owe it to me to stick around. This is how I felt anyway.
By the way, that street fair show you worked for, do you remember who it was for?
Alex
Knight?
Yeah.
That's the guy who broke me into the business. Him and Ed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrestled with a beautiful Jack Stud.
Yeah, he was the world champion at the time.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all coming back to me now.
Yeah.
How'd you like working for Alex Knight and Ed Aarons?
I had a great experience. I don't know, I certainly would have done it again. I want to say that it brought me some heat within, with Vern and whatnot. And so I kind of limited my appearances or kept them silent, which, in those days wasn't as hard because you didn't have the internet. You had wrestling dirt sheets, which, he probably is reading and whatnot, but, I could have worked under another name or wear a mask. I got some regrets.
The Creeper. Yeah, that was the recycled. Everybody was being the Creeper. I remember in SCCW. Yeah.
I didn't do that as much. I think I got to do it a couple times, but yeah, a lot of other very talented wrestlers got to don that mask.
Yeah.
So now SCCW kind of morphed into XPW. Now, I know you said you kind of were taking a step back at that point. Were you ever talked to, whether it was through Kevin Kleinrock, Patrick Hernandez, or Darren Dynamite D, about being a part of XPW?
As that era kind of started, I just kind of gotten married. I just had a lot of injuries, man. That ring was not fit to take the bumps that we took in, and kind of me and Darren kind of invented the moves, or started them. So we were our own stunt dummies. So a lot of injuries. By 26 years old, I'm pretty well broken. Old wrestlers, we can't run or pick up our kids or anything that I don't have, but we can go about 20 feet. We can run within a wrestling ring, and so yeah, by that time I wasn't sure that I wanted to. I felt like wrestling had lost some of the artistry through some of the more extreme things that were being done. Not that I didn't find them, entertaining and oh my God, but I didn't know that I wanted it to be me laying there, So yeah, I was always kind of in the loop and could have said to anyone, book me during this match, but unless I had feuded with Dynamite D, I think I was a little leery of getting into the world of, barbed wire and fire and, just tables that, just, I mean, I've done a lot of crazy things in my career, but, and a cage match is one thing that I have not done that I definitely would entertain. But there's just a few things I just didn't see myself doing that they kind of did regularly.
Did you get color much when throughout your career?
Man, that was a rough one because I wasn't very good at it. Generally, it either happened naturally or I actually had to have it done for me. But man, with slammers, it was so rough that it generally could happen naturally.
Wow.
But yeah, I've seen too many accidents and just things go wrong where I didn't want to do that as much. So that was another thing. I mean, I was open to it, but I've seen things go really bad, even just with D.
Can you? Yeah, because I remember D would get color, and he was good at it. And I remember that first XPW show before we get into that when that started. That with the West Siders, like wow, and that. I mean, even for us, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is like emotional. It's working. It's like if I'm feeling this way, how are the fans feeling, right? So, but can you talk about the first time you attempted to get color?
Man, it was kind of taught to me because it was kind of part of the business back then, as as it sometimes is now. But yeah, you just had to be very careful, and I was always very, very leery. So it wasn't something that I really wanted to have happen. And certainly it wasn't something I wanted to do myself as much. I don't know why. It just seemed like it was easier for, for it to happen elsewise. But man, yeah, it was scary, man. You're a young kid. You're having to, part of the business. And so, without saying too much or being too vague, because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say. I always lean towards protecting the business, though, of course. I think as any good old wrestler does. But yeah, man, it was something that was called upon, especially as slammers. It was a huge part of that era. It was what made us tough and maybe just different at the time, but yeah, it wasn't something I had to do very many times. But okay, I'll tell you what sucked is I wore contact lenses and the blood would hit your eyes and you literally wouldn't be able to see. And I was blind, man. I needed glasses to find my contacts. I was so blind. So when blood would get my eyes, it was a huge problem.
Wow, that's never thought of that before. Actually, this is the first time really even considering that. For any time in wrestling. Wow, that's pretty. Yeah, that's intriguing. That's fascinating. But that makes sense.
LASIK, but yeah. So I'm ready to go now. I can do it now because I've had LASIK. But no, man, I can remember my contacts getting covered in blood. I'm like, man, I cannot see through my contacts.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting story for you. During one of those matches, one of my bloody contacts gets like in the corner of my eye. This is in Bakersfield, California, and I try and pull it out. I'm not in front of a mirror or anything. I'm just in the back, and it falls out and falls on the floor. And someone says, "Can I help you find your contact? I'm really good at this." I'm like, "No, I don't need your help." And I turn around. It's Paul Rubens. And so I say, "Paul, it's Pee Wee Herman." So I say, "Paul, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was you. Of course you can help me. I'm so sorry. I'm just a little bit irritated. I can't see through my one bloody contact. I got one on the ground and don't know where my glasses are." So I actually had Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, help me find my contact lens, and he did.
Wow.
So that's a great story, I think.
Yeah, that's wow. That's very cool, man.
Yeah.
You talked about, which is very interesting, and I appreciate that when you were like on the side of protecting the business. And obviously things have changed so much. We're here doing this right now, right? And that's what I think I could speak for Eric and everybody watching and Adam, that we really appreciate you doing this, because I'll just say really quick, when XPW was done and then Wrestling Society X, and they wanted me to do these interviews for WSX, right? And this was really when the cat was jumping out of the bag in like the 2007-ish, right?
Yeah.
And I still was like, no, I don't want to do that. So I too held off for so long to do anything like this, even when it was going on, the shoot interviews and all that. But I was really thinking that way as well for the longest time. And now we're doing these for so long. When you said that just there, it just basically took me back, reminded me like, oh, that's right. We are not doing what we did, dropping the kayfabe.
Yeah, man. I grew up in the kayfabe era, man.
Yes.
Where I'll tell you what, though, my bruises, I have 3 herniated discs and a tear in my neck, 3 herniated discs and a tear in my back. Car accidents have contributed to that, of course. It wasn't all just wrestling, but man, wrestling tears you up. So, you can say the F word, but I never will, because to me, I've been dropped on my head. I've had so many undiagnosed concussions. And back in the day, you just kind of rubbed some blood on it and moved on. Like when I got hurt, okay, this is what was customary. If you actually hurt somebody, you chop them really hard so that they don't think about where they hurt. So, like if you hurt somebody's arm, you chop them, it wakes them up, and now they're worried about their chest. Now it hurts. So basically, and so my wife trips out when something hurts. I'll start punching myself, man. And I'm like, she's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "That's what gets rid of my pain. That's what we used to do back in the day." So yeah, my wife trips out on how an old wrestler lives. Do
you think some of those little tricks of the trade are lost today, or just kind of not executed anymore? Like even from the wrestling handshake in the back and all these things.
I heard about that. I mean, God, I hope not. But yes, I'm going to say that unfortunately, now I don't know. I'm so out of the loop. I'm hoping this is going to put me, into a whole new era as far as technology, and maybe I'll be able to find myself on Google, but things like that. But yeah, I'm afraid. Almost no. I'm sorry. It was actually Zoo the Gargoyle, Artie, Pinky LaRue. It's hard to remember everyone's gimmick names. Pinky LaRue actually was the one that informed me that the dead fish, which is you do this because if you're going to be meeting a child or something, you don't shake their hand aggressively. You give them a dead fish, and that's right. What I was taught is the wrestling handshake. And I recently learned that may not be a thing anymore. So yeah, I'll be sad if some of these old traditions are not passed down to the younger generations, because some of them I think had a lot of merit and value.
Right.
I agree. Now, Jeff, basically, before we go on to what you're doing now, whatever happened to Slammers? I know there was so much memorabilia. They have a ring. Vern passed away in 2011. And I know he had a lot of very cool things like one of Gorgeous George's robes. Do you know whatever happened to everything? Who owns Slammers, the rights to it, and everything connected to it?
If I had to guess, I would say it would probably be El Toro Bravo. Him and Vern were very close and were great business partners. And I think kind of Toro took over the role of things as Vern was less and less able to do them. As time went on, as Slammers became less and less of a thing, I think that Edgar ended up with these things, and I'm sure is taking great care of them and whatnot. I know I don't have any of them. If you have my videos or pictures, send them to me. But yeah, I would say that possibly Vern's former wife, who they're very, very close. I think she probably, inherited some of these things, and so I think between those two people that they would be a good source of some of these things. I haven't seen them on eBay. I'll tell you that.
Hey, speaking of things, you have in the back in our living room, we have that exact same lamp that's behind you, with the chain.
All right,
And
okay.
it's the only other time I've seen that anywhere. And I just realized I got out of the woodworks. I got a couple lava lamps behind me, and I wish I turned them on earlier because they're not doing their thing yet. But this lamp right here was given to me by Edie McMillan. This was Dee's, this one right here. So if you remember that, hanging out with
Yes,
Dynamite D,
of
that
course.
was apparently his old lava lamp. So I got that out. Actually, the cord was broken, so I had to splice the cord and electrical tape, and get it working again. So I don't know if you recognize that hanging out with D back in the day, but this was his old lava lamp. I just realized before we went on to go look for that, and I happened to find it.
I would go to Darren's parents' house to go watch like the Royal Rumble 1991. We watched the Royal Rumble 1991 at his house, I remember. Now, unfortunately, I don't think Darren's parents were in love with the fact that he was involved with wrestling. I think they had different aspirations for for him. I don't think they mind the Dynamite D Wrestle Talk show that he hosted for many, many years that I used to call into, and those were fun times.
Yeah,
man, that was awesome when he had his Wrestle Talk show. It was so cool. You'd stare. This is like when cable kind of had just begun, so you're staring at a black screen with like advertising writing or something on it, but it was Darren's voice, and you would call in and ask him questions about wrestling, anything. And he was so good at it. And I actually got to go with him to the studio and host it quite a few times. And man, when I think about, I grew up. This is a different story we're not going to talk about now, but grew up with a really interesting childhood that could be a different movie. And when I found wrestling, it was life changing. It was life altering. I really needed this. My mother had just passed away. I grew up the parents of alcoholics, and my mother suffered from mental illness. My dad was an alcoholic, and so wrestling definitely was there for me when I needed it, and it saved my life. And Vern was there, and Darren was there, and you were there, Chris, and so many people were there that. Man, I remember Long John Silver. His grandma, Granny Annie, was such a great lady, and unfortunately, Long John Silver and his brother had passed were killed by a drunk driver many years ago. This would have been like in the early 90s, right when he was still right after he wrestled and while he was still very young. But his grandma, Granny Annie, me and her had a very special relationship. And I remember I signed an autograph for her, and I signed, "I think, therefore I slam." I thought it was one of the most clever things I've ever come up with, even since.
that is awesome. Wow.
So yeah, lots of great memories. Man, I met people that were truck drivers, that were lawyers, that were writers for the show Weird Science, that just were everything, man. Anyone that was Ashley Hudson, who traveled from Perth, Australia, to come to Slammers Wrestling Gym. Rod Big Guns Cannon, Apollo, just, Corporal Punishment, all these people. Man, I wrestled Lobo twice, and 400 pounds, he squashed me both times. But man, all of these incredible people that I would have never met through any other means.
Right.
By the way, Jeff, you just sparked something in my mind, and I totally blanked out on this. Were you a part of the movie Ed Wood? I know Ed Wood filmed some stuff at Slammer's Wrestling Gym. Did you have any involvement in that?
I did not. I had bleach blonde hair, long bleach blonde hair, and was not what they were looking for as far as the look they were going for the 50s. So no, because of my look, I was too 70s looking for to be involved in that, too 80s looking. Yeah, but I was around.
Yep.
So yeah, movie star Mike, got some screen time, and he went from being malicious Mike to movie star Mike, and boy, did it made for a great attitude change and a great gimmick.
Jeff, so now that you're out of the business, can you tell everybody what you're up to now? And ending that, basically, what life lessons have you taken for your time in the wrestling business, and how do you apply it to your life now, as we are the Wrestling with Reality podcast?
For now, I'm out of the business, gentlemen. I would say for now. You can never say never. Hopefully I've kind of like, badass Billy Gunn, man. Seems like he found the fountain of youth, and I'm hoping to follow in some footsteps like that. So you never know. I might pop up somewhere, but I know it's been a long time, but you just never say never. But as far as what I've taken from me, man, wrestling to me it changed my life, kind of like, what going into the military has got to do for our great, vets and Americans that do that. It was life altering. It taught me discipline. It taught me self-respect. That's one thing I miss, is the confidence that I gained from wrestling. It doesn't always flow into the regular world. I can't go into my job as a gimmick, and whatever, even though I love that guy from BattleBots. But anyway, yeah, man, it's basically taught me work hard, follow your dreams more than anything, man. My backup plan was to be an elementary school teacher at the time, and I went to school to do it and whatnot, but I put 110% of my effort into wrestling and was not gonna settle for a backup plan. I was gonna become a professional wrestler, which I did. I didn't reach the levels I'd hoped for, but I'm still alive. You never know.
Right.
There's guys way older than me that are having great matches right now.
Right.
Have you ever thought of maybe reaching out to one of the big companies about maybe being either a coach at the Performance Center or maybe as a backstage producer?
I that sounds great, and people have mentioned that to me. To be honest with you, I'm not sure they would know who I am or care, to be honest with you. But other than that, I have the experience. I'd like to think I could, cut a promo with, if necessary, and have some great ideas. So, hey, Paul, Vince, whoever's out there, I'm still got a great smile. So, who knows what life is going to bring to you. So the young lion may not be done,
Absolutely. And hey, I know you were telling us before we came on the podcast about the belt that's behind you. Would you mind showing us that? I know you said your wife got that.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing I got to talk about. I recently, we talked about Dynamite D, the world's greatest wrestler, Mr. 80s Dynamite D. I wouldn't have been as successful as I was in wrestling without him. I recently got a tattoo. It's the only tattoo I have, but it is commemorating him. And I went big. It is
Wow.
my first and only tattoo, but it is
Oh,
all Dynamite D. And so I think he did a great job. I love everything about it, and I'm super excited. So
That's pretty cool.
that's
yeah,
great.
so Dynamite D will always be with me, man. But yes, I waited 16 years to get that tattoo. That's how much it meant to me. Since Darren's passing, it's been on my mind. I've been afraid. I'm starting to do some of my bucket list stuff. So yeah, another match may not be impossible. I just gotta, I'm gonna put in the work. It would take a lot of work. All right, but this is the greatest gift I've ever gotten from anyone. It's from my wife. She got it for me for Christmas. It is a replica of the Slammers Wrestling Gym logo. It
That's
says
great.
SWF, the years that I wrestled, basically. It has the Dynamite D symbol on the belt.
Awesome.
It has the Jeff the Young Lion Lindberg.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lion face.
Wow.
And there's a D and V on there for Darren and Vern.
Oh, wow. That's cool, man.
It really has. And this, my wife surprised me with this. I knew nothing about this. I had nothing to do with the design. I had nothing to do
Wow.
with anything about it. I can thank Artie, Pinky LaRue and Dream Championship belts for making this a reality. She's spared no expense. I'm sure it wasn't that expensive, relatively speaking. And but it literally brought me to tears. It is pretty heavy. She bought me a strap where it hangs on my wall right here. It's
Wow.
in my kitchen, like in my dining room, and it literally is the only gift that has ever brought me to complete tears. So
And when were you given this?
Christmas of last year.
Okay, wow, 2022, Chris. Wow. And when did you get the tattoo again?
I got the tattoo about a month ago.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's super fresh, man. It is super fresh.
This was like you said. I like you, man. I believe in life. There's many times there's really no coincidences. There's synchronicities, and this was just perfect timing to have you on like this, Jeff.
It really was in every respect possible. You'll never know what this means to me. It's a dream come true. I would look forward to doing this anytime with you if I can help the business, you gentlemen, or anything about wrestling in any way. I'd be so happy to. This has truly been an honor. It's a dream come true, and it's nice to be just here.
Well, the pleasure is all ours, man. And really quick, the light up behind you. If we touched on that, the purple lights there.
Oh, so yeah, okay. So I love giraffes. I don't know why, but giraffes are kind of my thing.
Oh, okay.
So I have a whole family of giraffes. We lit them up for Halloween.
Okay.
But yeah, I love giraffes. So those are and they're tall too, man. Those are like 6 foot giraffes. They're tall, 7 foot. So those are my family of giraffes in the background.
I hope they're tall. They're giraffes.
Right? They need long necks for sure.
I didn't know. I couldn't tell if those were lights or if that was like Glitzy Greg's robe to come out to the ring. Couldn't tell.
Right? Yeah. Oh, Glitzy Greg. Oh man, yeah. What a character, man. It's. I have so many memories, so many stories. We can literally do this for days. You guys are great at like feeding me things I can remember, and this is awesome. I love it. I'm having a great time.
The flower.
I was so nervous too. I was telling my wife, "Oh my God, this is my first wrestling related public appearance in forever." I would say, since the invention of the internet, I've never done a podcast. This is all new to me. So hopefully, who knows? This is great.
Well, yeah, thank you for being so transparent. You're a natural, man. That's I would never have known that had you not said anything. So no, this is. I mean, for myself too, man. Thank you, because this is a great trip down memory lane for myself as well. So this is, and yeah, I'm sure once we sign off here, I'm boom boom. I'm going to think of I did 20 other things, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
One thing is very sad about Luke Harper and Bray Wyatt and
yeah,
just all of the wrestlers that have passed away recently. It's starting to feel like the '90s again. When we went through that with Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and Cincinnati Red and just everyone we knew and love and whatever. It's very sad.
it's yeah. Hopefully this will be a trend that will end soon, you know, and it won't be really a trend. But yeah, absolutely. Time will tell, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff, do you have any plugs before we sign off that you'd like to give? Any shout outs to, any plugs where people could reach you, or anything else you'd like to say? Hey, I just want to say before you go on that it's been such an honor to have you on. And
well, of course, shout out to Joey Chaos. He has done the best job of keeping Dynamite D's memory alive. I have nothing but respect for you. If I ever was going to come out of retirement, there's basically two people I would have the honor of wrestling. One of them would be Joe Chaos. Maybe the other one, maybe Homeless Jimmy. So you never know. The young lion, you may see me again. But yeah, when I see what Joey Chaos has done to keep the memory of Dynamite D alive, it's more than I could ever dream of and ever imagine. And it means the world to me because Dynamite D meant the world to me. I mean, literally, I went to a psychic and quick story, you can edit this out or whatever, but I went to a psychic and they told me I'm connecting with your brother, and I'm like, I don't have a brother. And like, no. She's like, no, this is a brother. And she started telling me things. It was Dynamite D. And unfortunately, the psychic has since passed away of cancer, but she connected me with Vern Langdon as well. And I am not necessarily a believer of, as much of that, but from my experience, that's what happened. And
Wow.
When Vern came on, she's like, this guy is so bright. Like, he basically will not take commands from anybody. He is his own person and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's Vern. I know that's Vern. And the thing with Darren, she's like, this is your brother. He's telling me this and that and that. And, it's not something I would have anticipated or, necessarily, whatever. But it happened. And so, yeah, man, you just never know what life is going to throw at you and who you're going to meet. And destiny.
Yeah.
well, Jeff, you know what? It was truly an honor and a privilege to have you on. Thank you so very much. We'd love to have you on again. I know we're talking about in the future of doing a tribute to Dynamite D, and we'd love to have you a part of that.
Oh yeah.
Any way that I could be involved or participate or help with that or anything in the future. I've been kind of secluded from the wrestling business, and I'd like to change that. Even if I never stepped in the ring again, I will always be a huge fan of wrestling. I'm a huge fan of the show, and would love to do anything I can to improve the business and just appreciate the business as it should be.
Thank you so very much, sir. We truly appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure, Eric. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed everything about you.
Thank you.
Chris Claus, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to future interactions with you. Yes, sir.
Great reconnecting with you, my friend, and good seeing you. And this was a blast. And again, can't thank you enough. And I'm sure I speak for everybody out there listening to this episode.
It's my pleasure, I assure you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Signing off. This has been another edition
Okay, have a great
of the
night.
Wrestling with Reality podcast for our guest, Jeff the Young Lion / the Brace Lindberg, and for
Yes.
Eric Malikian and Adam Woods. My name is Chris Kloss, and we'll see
Thank
you on the
you.
next. We'll see you on the next Wrestling with Reality. Good night, everybody.
Great night. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. That was great, guys. I had so much fun.
No, thank you so much. I mean, your stories are great, and the passion you have for this business, I think this isn't the last you're going to have anything to do with wrestling.
Yeah, man.
Right on, man. I it's always my goal to become famous. Unless I rob a Wells Fargo, I don't think it's going to happen.
Hey, you never know,
man. You never know.
You never know. There's people that are involved in the business at a big time level now that have never done anything like at the WWE level that are now contributing at the Performance Center behind the scenes.
Right.
Never.
Well, I'd like to think I somehow kept my looks, and I'm ready to go, man. So sign me up.
Absolutely. And you know who hopefully will see you and Homeless Jimmy have that match?
We both had torn meniscuses, but yeah, it could be. I need a new meniscus match, but yeah, that's a goal, and I'd say it'd either be Homeless Jimmy or Joey Chaos. Those are my idols, and who I would want to have a match with.
That would be awesome, man. And yeah, like you said, those are the two guys that are closest, that are doing anything closest to D, and you would fit right in there, of course, dude.
I want to go as a heel though, bro. If I go, I think I want to fucking turn on someone, and I'm ready to work it as a heel. It'd be easier for me, I think.
I should have asked you this, but you were mostly babyface, or were you always babyface?
No, when I did the brace, I was a heel, and I found it much easier. I liked it. I found it easier. Nowadays, even though, I can't say a lot, or have to watch what I say, I think I can totally, man, I would work it so good. I think I'd be more than willing to turn on either one of those guys. But yeah, I definitely think a heel, if I'm going to go into it, I got to be the bad guy.
That'd be cool, man.
What?
Yeah.
A good old school heel is what professional wrestling needs today.
I agree, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing physical therapy for my torn meniscus. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to make it a goal. And I'm not talking like a 5-year goal because I'm 49. So I'm talking like a 1-year goal. So let's keep in touch, guys. I would be happy to contribute any way I can, to be a guest anytime, guest host, anything you need.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And it's glad.
I understand. I kind of do. I recognize your face now that you mention it. I understand we met at Dee's funeral.
Yes, we did. We met right after the Dee's service back in 2007.
That was both a horrible and a great day for me. I lost my best friend, but I had let's just say D brought me a Simple JJ. I got laid at his funeral, basically. So that was great. So, D was looking after me for real. But yeah, man. So we definitely got to stay in contact. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hey, you know what? Darren was truly a great guy. Like, just such an amazing.
Best I've ever known, bro. I have not, and probably, Chris Claus is amazing too, man. But, Darren, I spent so much time with, and I've never met I've never been as close to a person as I am with him.
Yeah. And he's watching over you. I love that you told that story at the end there. I think he's truly looking over you.
And he's got to love the tattoo. If he doesn't love the tattoo, then fuck him. No.
No, I feel like he's definitely right here watching this right now for sure.
I think so too, bro. That's why I'm so relaxed, and I felt like it went pretty well for my first public appearance in a long time. So yeah, this has been great, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
He's watching he's watching it saying, all right, come on, let me see how these guys do. Like Mr. Russell talk, like, okay, let's see how these guys do. You know, come on.
Hey, Chris, what do you think about you being in a match? Me against you.
Oh my goodness.
What do you think, man? Fucking I turn on you. You're the announcer for somebody's match.
Yeah.
I show up in the ring.
Dude,
Chris,
I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there.
All right, Eric.
Yeah, man.
There's lots of possibilities, man.
You got one of the great pros here, dude, to take care of you and guide you through it if you decide you want to do it.
I know, man. Absolutely. Oh boy.
There we go. I won't hurt you. I mean, I'll hit you hard, but I'll hit you in the right spots.
Okay. All right. Oh man.
Well, let's stay in touch, gentlemen.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Jeff, I'm available anytime if I'm not at a concert, so it's all good.
Oh, awesome.
I'm going to Shinedown on Thursday, man. Foo Fighters were awesome. I went to Foo Fighters last Tuesday. Shinedown is on Thursday, guys. I'm so excited.
Wow, you're hitting the shows. That's great, man.
Yeah, bro, that's my thing.
Awesome, dude. Well, yeah, I like going to shows too. So maybe if I'm out there, you're out here. Let's definitely meet up.
I'm gonna come out there, bro.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Awesome.
It's a plan.
I think we got a potential match here between the young lion and Chris.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, man, if I can do one, I can do three, right? Let's do this.
Hey, Jeff, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I truly appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. Will I receive a copy of this before it airs, or I just
Will, and if you want anything edited, if there's anything you don't feel comfortable with or anything, just let me know, and I'll have Adam go through it.
I think I did pretty well.
Yeah,
I think I did pretty well.
I don't feel like there's anything myself. I don't feel like there was anything like that was worthy of needing to be taken out. I think everything was talked about great. It was awesome, man.
I thought
really filled in that timeline great. It was just all came natural, man.
I tried to speak and then shut up so you guys could ask the next question, you know?
No, the flow was great for everybody.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, I thought so too. Right on, guys.
All right, brother.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Dude, this is a dream come true. I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to get more involved. You guys might be saving my life again, man. This is how brotherhood works and wrestling works, man.
Thank you so much. I mean, truly, it goes both ways. Thank you so much.
Eric, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm gonna reach out to you guys, I promise, and I hope I talk to you soon, okay?
Absolutely. We will definitely stay in touch.
Take care, Jeff.
Okay. Have a great night. All right. Bye.
Good night.